Hey guitar people, 2007 was a crazy year. That year Gibson decided they wanted to launch a program called Guitar of the Week. I knew I was going to be in trouble. By then I was already collecting guitars, and they had kind of leaked what their list was going to be at the beginning of the year, so you kind of knew what was coming and when roughly it was going to be available. What I have here today is 2007's Week 4 Guitar of the Week. This is a Gibson Explorer Pro in Vintage Sunburst. This is actually my favorite color on an electric guitar. It's got that nice kind of a classic look to it, and it's got you know, some class and some fanciness to it. But what this is it's a Gibson Explorer Pro. If you've seen my other video on Gibson Explorer, I won't go too much into this, but pretty much all the features are the same. The scale length, 24 3/4 inch, the rosewood fretboard. You know, again, this is prior to Gibson getting raided by the government. It's prior to them putting robot tuners on everything. So this was just a solid, you know, kind of a staple kind of a guitar. When I say staple, I mean it was built using the sort of construction methods and features that you would expect out of Gibson at that time. And they hadn't kind of ran afoul of wood sourcing supplies or I'll call it bad design decisions and things of that sort of nature. It uses the same tuners that a Gibson Explorer full-size one uses. If you haven't noticed, this is about 90% the size of a Gibson Explorer. So a full-size Gibson Explorer is just slightly bigger. What that does is that it cuts down on the weight of this thing quite a bit. It's very light and handy and easy to wear for extended periods of time. The balance of it is almost as good as the full-size Gibson Explorer, to a point where, you know, I can take my hands off and the thing doesn't really go anywhere. Although it's not as solid in its position as Gibson Explorer full-size model is. It moves around a little bit more, but that's okay. I mean, it's a lot lighter and a lot easier to deal with from that perspective. What they did special for 2007 is they did either completely new models or they did models with some variations that were not commonly available. They did, like, you know, special editions of certain models. So the base Gibson Explorer Pro is kind of like this, except it was you know, just a solid slab body mahogany guitar, kind of like the full-size Explorers are. They typically came in either black or natural at that time. This one here, what they did is for 2007 is they added body binding and neck binding, which to me is a kind of a nice feature. The body binding is purely decorative, but the neck binding does, the way they do it, tend to really just make the neck feel very smooth because it protects your hands from sharp fret ends and fret sprout and things like that. It is a standard Explorer configuration, 2 volumes and 1 tone knob with a 3-way selector up front for the pickups. The pickups are the same as any other modern Explorer. It's a 496R in the neck and a 500T in the bridge. These are the super hot ceramic pickups. And that's pretty much the features of this guitar. It's still made out of a multi-piece glued together back. They used a very thin maple cap so that they can get, you know, a nice flame maple top on this thing, which just looks killer. Looks absolutely gorgeous, as opposed to, you know, the stock just, you know, plain mahogany body or just solid painted black, which both of those look fine too in their own right, but this just kind of gave it that extra touch of class. As soon as I saw the list, I knew I was going to buy one of these guitars because, you know, it's my favorite color on a guitar. So, you know, this is what I was going to play instead of, say, the Les Paul that Slash plays. And this one did play with me for some gigs. Later on, I ended up getting another very similar one to play at the other gig, or to play at gigs moving forward. But this one is basically all stock from 2007. It doesn't have, you know, every guitar is slightly different, even if the specs are the same. And it doesn't have quite the same brightness to it that, you know, some of my full-size Explorers can get. But it's a very comfortable neck, especially with the binding. I did play this out at a couple of major large charity events locally here. So I do have some sentimental attachment to this guitar. It's a great guitar. I don't play it so much these days because I've got other ones, again, as I've stated before, that I've grown to prefer over this one. But, you know, it is what it is. As far as availability, being a 2007 Guitar of the Week, what they did is every week they would come out with a different model for this kind of promotional program, and they would limit themselves to, as they called it, up to 400. What that means is they would build them as you know, their dealers ordered them up to a maximum of 400 total. So what they've done a number of times over the years, and I don't know that I really agree with it, I think it's kind of stupid, and I didn't buy into it because it was a collector's thing. I bought into it because I like the color of the guitar and I like the style of the guitar and some of the features like the neck binding. But what they do pretty often at Gibson is they try and create demand by creating this artificial scarcity and saying, we're going to do a limited run of these, so they're a collector's item, everyone buy them. To me, that's a load of crap. But it's a great guitar. So, you know, I did end up buying one of these despite my disagreement with that sort of practice in the first place. It's just philosophical, and it really doesn't take away from the guitar itself. As far as availability, you know, obviously if they were only going to make up to 400 max of these things in 2007, then you know, you can't go out and buy one of these days. At that time, this cost the same price as a Gibson Explorer, a stock one, which I believe was somewhere in the order of like, it was either 1100 or 1170 or 1070, something like that. I don't remember when exactly they did their price hike. But for the same price as a Gibson Explorer, you get a slightly smaller one that was actually more comfortable to wear and play, that had, like, you know, all of these labor-intensive things on it, like binding and you know, a selected top wood and things like that. So in that context, you were getting some premium features on a guitar like this that you usually wouldn't get until you went up to spending like $2,500 plus on a Les Paul. So that was kind of nice. You know, it's a great player. I've always kept it. It came with a decent setup from the factory, despite what everyone says, and this is prior to them buying their Plek machine. So this was set up by some tech at their factory, and it was set up pretty good. I lowered it just slightly to make it a little bit more easily playable, but I don't like my setups too low anyway. So with that said, we'll just take you out with a sample here that'll give you a little bit of a flavor of the dirty and the clean sounds. After all, this is basically a Gibson Explorer.